Welcome to another Fantasy Goodfellas video where we talk about the top 30 wide receiver rankings for week 14. You ready? Let's do it.
The Fantasy Goodfellas.
Rolling on the field.
The Fantasy Goodfellas.
All right, just want to explain a little bit what's going on in this video. Unfortunately, we don't have Richard as one of our analysis for this video, so I'm going to try to do this on my own. This will be the first time that I do a video on my own, and I'm hoping that our stat machine, our graphic design machine, will help you guys with your lineups. But the best part is you'll be able to interact with the show and ask questions, and I'll be able to show you some stats. So hopefully that's good. So let's just get started by showing you what happened last week and week 13's predictions. So the first thing I want to show you is this is week 13's predictions. Now we're going to go with the Fantasy Pros predictions, and what that does is we're just going to compare that, because a lot of times some of these rankings, they seem to get kind of repetitive. And the first stat I want to show you is how did they do? What was their rank? So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to switch all these predictions and see where they lined up. So this is week 13's predictions. They had Davante Adams came in at number 1, Tyreek Hill 5, Stephon Diggs. So if you look at this, Jalen Waddle out of the top 10 was the one that didn't make the top 30 rankings at all. And then if you move here, Amari Cooper didn't make it. So anything you see, these were the predictions compared to the results for the week. And then you'll see some other things. Amari Cooper, Deebo Samuel didn't make it, and so forth. But a new stat I wanted to show you is, out of all these rankings, how many of them scored touchdowns? So I want to quickly go ahead and show you that as well, because sometimes is it touchdowns that make the ranking, or is it the yardage? So this is our first stat for the week 13. Even though we're doing week 14's predictions, I just want to say everybody who made the top, anybody who scored 2 touchdowns was pretty much going to be the success here. So you got Davante Adams scored 2 touchdowns, A.J. Brown scored 2 touchdowns, Amon-Ra St. Brown, he scored 2 touchdowns. You also have Christian Watson, who scored 2 touchdowns. So that gives you an idea of who makes the rankings versus how many times they scored the touchdowns. Let's go back here and look at their rankings one more time. This is going to be how they did. Now, keep in mind, this is a live interactive chat group. So if you want to ask some questions, we're going to look at it. So that's what we got for week 13. Is anybody got any questions on those predictions? Remember, we're using our stat machine to kind of see how we're going to do on next week. So before we get started, we're going to go ahead and switch this to week 14. And let's just start off with the top receiver. They have Justin Jefferson playing against Detroit. Now, last week, Justin Jefferson, he did 45 yards, 1 touchdown. He came in 17th. So it seems that, people are still high on Justin Jefferson, even though he didn't have that good of a week 13. So the next one is Tyreek Hill playing the Los Angeles Chargers. That is, let's see how he did. Now, Tyreek Hill, he was ranked 5th, even though he had 146 yards and 1 touchdown. He still came in 5th. So this week against the Chargers, many people are picking Tyreek Hill to go 2nd. We're going to go to the 3rd ranking. Davante Adams versus the Los Angeles Rams. Now, this is how he did last week. He had 177 receiving yards and 2 TDs. He's going against the Los Angeles Rams. Coming in at number 4 is Jamar Chase, playing against Cleveland. Now, surprisingly, Cleveland had 3 defensive touchdowns last week, which is unbelievable. So we're still, obviously Jamar Chase is a stud, and he has, high expectations. He's coming back from injury, but we're still expecting him to do well because a lot of people are high on him. However, he's still going against that, that Cleveland defense that was, incredible last week. So let's move on to the 5th ranking. They got Stephon Diggs, got him at 5th. And last week he scored a touchdown, 92 yards. He was ranked 12th. So it seems like they're still high on him. Let's go to the 6th one, A.J. Brown, playing at the New York Giants. Last week, he was the number 2 receiver. He had 119 yards. He had 10 receptions. If we zoom in and look at the defense, if we look at how the entire offense did, the 380 yards. He had 8 catches out of 29. That's pretty good. Looks like they're going to him a lot. But for the first time in a while, I saw that they have 119 yards and 102 yards. So A.J. Brown did pretty good. Devontae Smith did pretty good. And now we're hoping that kind of continues. Let's go back into the predictions. Now, what we're doing here is we're using our stat machine. I really wanted to put the stat machine out there to kind of show you guys that this stuff is interactive. I kind of want to, see if you guys got any questions. If you want to look at any players specifically to see how they do as we go through the stats and the rankings. But remember, we're not using Richard's rankings this week. Unfortunately, he had something to do. We're just going to try to, continue and keep this going. So hopefully we're showing you some stats. You can make your own decisions. And if you have some, graphics that you'd want to see, we can kind of zoom in on a player and see how they're doing. But we're just going to continue through these rankings, see where people ranked them and why they may have ranked them, and then see how they're doing throughout the course of the season. So let's jump back into the stats. So there's no surprise here. When you look at these rankings, you're going to get the same rankings in the top 5. So if I go last week and I want to see how last week's rankings did, your top 5 players all made the top 30 list. So it's not incredible to say, hey, if I'm picking Devontae, Tyreek, Stephon, Justin Jefferson, A.J. Brown, CeeDee, I pretty much expect all of them to make the top 30 rankings. So we really have to bury in more and see if there's some players that you need some help predicting. Let's go back to week 14 and just kind of plug through this and see if there's any trends that we can pick. At number 7, we have CeeDee Lamb versus Houston. Now, Houston, the Miami Dolphins, Houston's not that good of a defense. So, and Dallas is red hot. So we should still expect good things for CeeDee Lamb. The question is he going to come in and beat that? Last week he had 71 receiving yards, 23 rushing yards, and 1 receiving touchdown. Now, if we want to look over the course of the season, he's kind of sporadic when it comes to the touchdowns. And as you see with wide receivers, you need that touchdown to kind of rank your player. So if we come in here and show last week's ranking once again and look at the top 7, you're hoping that they score touchdowns. That's what's going to give you that extra boost in ranking. So yes, they can get the yards, but it's going to be that touchdown that puts them over the top. So we come back and look at CeeDee Lamb versus Houston. You're really gauging, can he score a touchdown with most of these top players here. Let's move on. Number 8, we got Amon-Ra St. Brown versus Minnesota. Detroit's playing good. Last week, this is our top third receiver that we had. So Amon-Ra St. Brown was targeted 12 times and caught 11 receptions over those targets at 114 receiving yards. He was the 2 reception TDs, and he was ranked 3rd. Now, if we look over the entire offense, the 2 TDs that he scored was the only 2 TDs that Jared Goff had. So 31, he had about 33% of the targets or the receptions come his way. And, we're just trying to gauge where that ball's going to, and it's going to be Amon-Ra St. Brown. Moving on, they got DeAndre Hopkins versus New England. Now, sometimes when you look at this, Hopkins didn't really play last week, and that shows right there. But the week before, he had 87 yards, ranked 10, 1 reception. Come back here, and so I think they're getting Kyler Murray back. And so that should bode well for them. And coming in at number 10 is T. Higgins versus Cleveland. Now, T. Higgins he had a touchdown, but he was ranked 26, he had 35 yards. Now, if we want to look at how he did overall on that offense, even though Burrow and the team was red hot, it looks like they were more rushing yards. It was kind of very efficient game, and if you look at only 3 catches out of 25, so kind of gives you an idea where that offense is headed. It just seems to be. Now we're going to go on and move to the 11th is DK Metcalf versus the Carolina Panthers, and I believe DK Metcalf he did very well. He was ranked 7th out of all that. This is standard scoring, so he was ranked 7th. He had 127 yards, 1 receiving touchdown. But if you look at, he had 8 targets, 8 receptions. And it kind of gives you an idea where he's at. So if we want to look at the week ranks, DK Metcalf's kind of coming in and out. He'll kind of, whether he's injured, and I think that's what you're kind of seeing. So could he be heating up? I just don't know if that's the season for him. Now, coming in at number 12, we have Jalen Waddle versus the Los Angeles Chargers. Now, Waddle kind of disappeared last week. Terrible. 9 reception yards and only 1 reception. Just didn't go well for the Miami Dolphins. But I guess, because he's having an unbelievable season, we're still believing in him. Jalen Waddle, there's still some expectations but if you look at that week 13, that was his worst week of the season. And we're hoping that they bounce back. But going against the Chargers, I believe that game did get pushed and get flexed into the top spot. So we're hoping that Jalen Waddle bounces back. Amari Cooper, number 13, Amari Cooper at Cincinnati. Cooper had a very quiet game. I think Deshaun Watson's back. You look at Deshaun Watson, how he did. Of course he was going to have some rust. I think that's what I expected him to have, and I think they kind of played out. But they didn't need him because their defense was playing so good. But do I think Watson will pick up? Absolutely. So we should expect more than that. So Amari Cooper should have a decent game. At number 14, we have Tyler Lockett versus the Carolina Panthers. Tyler Lockett, they had a very good game because DK Metcalf scored. You got Tyler Lockett scored. He had 128 receiving yards, 1 reception TD, and that Geno Smith, who was locked in, 3 TDs, 1 to Tyler Lockett, 1 to DK Metcalf. I think they're warming up, and let's just face it, the Carolina Panthers ain't doing much. They got a big quarterback issue, and I think right now is Geno Smith and that Seattle Seahawks offense. It's just they're warming up. He's been steady all season. If you look at Geno Smith, you want to see how he's performed over the weeks. Passing yards, he's only had less than 200 yards twice in the first 2 weeks, and then it's just been steady. The TDs, he's been at least getting two TDs most games that he's played, so we should expect him to continue that. And I think Tyler Lockett, I think you're going to be fine. At 15, they picked Deebo Samuel versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Buccaneers ain't really scoring, even though they won last week. I really do think that there's going to be a pullback a little bit, because who's going to be the quarterback? And even though when Garoppolo got hurt, Purdy did pretty good, but I think if you can plan against them, that's going to work against them. And unless you're doing something creative, I don't see how you put Deebo Samuel there. I know he's a stud of a receiver, but I still think it's just not the week. I don't think he's going to do that good there. I think I'd be weary of putting Deebo Samuel there. At number 16, Chris Godwin at San Francisco 49ers. Chris Godwin could have had a better week. I know he dropped a pass or two in the games in the game of what I saw, and but he still is one of Tom Brady's go-to players between him and Mike Evans, and obviously there's some issues that I heard about Mike Evans, but you can even see that if there is issues, he's going to Godwin a few more times. Mike Evans, he caught 4 of his receptions. If you look, Chris Godwin, he was targeted 13 times, so he's definitely going for Godwin's way, so that's looking good for him. And, Godwin's coming back. It seems he's picking up a little bit near the tail end of the season here. It's just he's not scoring. Getting 2 touchdowns on the season, you'd expect a little bit more from Chris Godwin at this point. But, he's definitely getting the usage and getting targeted a lot. At number 17, they got Garrett Wilson at Buffalo. Garrett Wilson, look at those yards. I mean, Garrett Wilson's having an incredible week 13. He was ranked 10th. I think that was his best week all season. I guess the week before he had a little bit better season. Week 5, week 2, he had a better season. Better week. And I think the one thing about doing these predictions on my own is that this is where I miss Richard a lot, because he knows a lot of the players, where I'm kind of using the stats a little bit. So my limitations is creating these stats and seeing if I can pick up any trends, and hopefully the stat machine will actually pick the rankings for us. So that's what we're working on. But if we come here, you'll see that Garrett Wilson, week 2 he was hot, week 12 he was hot, week 13 he's hot. So Garrett Wilson, he's doing pretty good. The question is with Mike White having 369 yards and he's looking Garrett's way, I think that bodes well for Garrett Wilson. So I have no problem seeing Garrett Wilson in the top 17. So again, as we're doing these rankings, I want to look back at and see at this point how those rankings look. So you look at some of these rankings, pretty much out of the top 17, you might have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 players not be ranked in the top 30, even though you predicted them to be in the top 30. That's definitely interesting. So if we took those statistics and say, well, which 5 are not going to make the top 30 out of the top 17 here? And you have to look at defense, you have to look at where that ball's going to. And that's we know there's going to be some people missing the top 30 out of this group here. Let's move on. At number 18, you got Christian Kirk at Tennessee. Christian Kirk, he's getting targeted. He's getting the receiving yards. But the problem is now Trevor Lawrence had that knee injury. And can you count on C.J. Beathard? And I think that's going to do it. So if you look and say, yeah, Christian Kirk's getting the yards, but is he going to do that with CJ? I'm not sure. And if you get Tennessee to kind of get any rushing and take some time off that clock, that's not going to bode well for that Jaguars offense. And I think that's the problem you're going to run into. At number 19, Mike Evans at San Francisco. So the first thing is you got 2 Tampa wide receivers in the top 20. And I think Mike Evans, I mean, you expect good things. He's tall. He's been scoring touchdowns usually in his career. When it comes to the season here, he's not scoring the touchdowns. So, you got to start wondering if you can count on Mike Evans this season. I mean, he's only cracked 80 yards 4 times this season, and he's only had 3 touchdowns. I would say that Mike Evans is trending down, even though you expect good things from him, pretty much because of it over his career. At number 20, you see Keenan Allen versus Miami. Keenan Allen, it looks like that Chargers offense is heating up. Yeah, you got a reception, you got 88 yards from Keenan Allen. Is he finally making his way back? If you look at the yards, he's not too bad, and he's getting in the end zone consistently. Can that continue? I would say that it definitely looks like that can happen. And I think the chemistry between with Justin Herbert and Keenan Allen's there, so that's why we kind of expect that to happen, right? He's still going to look Keenan Allen's way. That's his, number 1 receiver. I think that's going to bode well to put him in there. At number 21, Devontae Smith. Now, A.J. Brown had an awesome game, and now Devontae Smith, he too had pretty much probably one of his better games of the season. Let's look back and see how many times he cracked the top 10. He was the number 1 receiver in week 3, and in week 13 he cracked the top 10. But it's all these weeks that he kind of disappeared, and can you really count on him? If we want to look back and see last week, he scored a touchdown, but is he scoring touchdowns over the season? And that's what I like to kind of see is he scoring? He's every 2-3 weeks he's scoring. So I would say that he's not going to score the coming week. And if you're not scoring, that's going to push you down the list. So you're hoping for some yards out of him. Can he get another 100 yards? I don't know. He's only surpassed 100 yards twice this whole season. So I think putting Devontae Smith on this list is a stretch. I don't see that happening. At number 22, we have Gabe Davis versus the New York Jets. Gabe Davis, he had a touchdown, but he's just not getting those receiving yards. And that's not going to do well. I think if you look back and you see they're going against the New York Jets, let's look at how Gabe Davis does. He's the receiving yards, maybe he's cracked 80 1, 2, 3 times this season, and he's only scored 6 TDs. So I think he's got it in it to score this week. I think that prediction's not too bad if you kind of look at it. Next, Brandon Ayuk. At number 23, Brandon Ayuk versus Tampa Bay. Again, I don't know. Those San Francisco receivers is going to be tough going with another quarterback. And, of course, he did well, but the problem is can you count on him? how's that offense going to look? Now, this is already this season's third quarterback, and they're talking about even getting Baker Mayfield and throwing him into the mix. I don't know. Brandon Ayuk this season, he's been mid-season. He's doing all right, but let's see the touchdowns. I don't know, 6 touchdowns this season. The yards, hasn't really cracked 100. I just don't see it. Those San Francisco receivers this week kind of scare me. I'd be cautious going with any San Francisco receiver this week. At number 24, DJ Moore at Seattle. DJ Moore's coming back from injury, and is there going to be... Oh, no, they had a bye. So, coming back, to put him in the top 30, I don't know, it just seems tough again. Just not sure I'd trust DJ Moore, that Carolina offense. You can say all you want about, you can say all you want about that. Sam Darnold might be the starter. I think that's a running team, and to kind of, I know he's scoring, it's just, can you just trust it? I don't know if I would trust that. At number 25, you have Marquez Brown coming back versus New England. Marquez Brown, he's did good, but there's been he's still coming back from injury. You gotta wonder what's going on. You got Kyler Murray, he's coming back. You got Marquez Brown coming back. I don't know. Those Arizona receivers kind of scare me as well. Next up, at number 26, you got Joshua Palmer versus Miami. Palmer had the targets. He had the usage. And I would say he's going against Miami. We don't know what the quarterback situation. I think Tua's going to play, but if he doesn't, that's just going to bode well for the Chargers. I think it's a safe bet to expect him to be in the top 30. He's had some really good weeks, and now as Justin Herbert's warming up, I think you can depend on him to make that top 30. Number 26, Juju Smith-Schuster at Denver. Juju, from what Richard used to say, is that he could be Patrick Mahomes' number one receiver. We know his number one target's going to be Travis Kelce. But, Juju's been up and down all season. And I think that's, what worries me. Only scoring 2 times. So, to kind of stay in there, you kind of need some yardage, or you need a TD to kind of get there. I think it should go well for Juju this week. I think making the top 30 is not a big deal. Nothing to be in question. Adam Thielen, at number 28, Adam Thielen at Detroit. Minnesota's doing really well this season. They got arguably one of the best receivers in the league. Adam Thielen, he's having an okay season. I wouldn't say it's anything to write home about. The question is can you count on him for a TD? I don't think the yardage is going to be there. He's not that type of explosive guy. But you're looking for a TD. Just don't think that's going to happen either. I doubt Adam Thielen will make the top 30 this coming week. So let's move on. At number 29, you got George Pickens versus Baltimore. Had a terrible week 13. And I don't know what you can count on him here. He's got some touchdowns. Could he disappear for another 2 weeks? Possibly. How did the entire team? It didn't look like they did too much. When you're getting 197 total yards from your quarterback, 197 passing yards from your quarterback, not sure I can count on them either. Even though, you think that, I think his go-to is going to be Pat Freiermuth, and it could be anybody's ball game here when it comes to receivers. He can throw it to his running backs. Not sure I'd count on Pickens to make that top 30 either. And at 30, it shows Donovan Peoples-Jones at Cincinnati. Now, I think because you expect Deshaun Watson to kind of warm up a little bit, now you're going to put Donovan Peoples-Jones in there. I don't see it either. I think if you look at who they're playing Cincinnati. I mean, Perrine can take over. I think it's going to be tough to see two Cleveland receivers make that top 30 list when Deshaun Watson's making its way back. Just don't know. And once again, if you look at last week and you look at how many touchdowns are dispersed amongst there, you're looking for a receiver to make some touchdowns. This is not a yardage type thing. So, it is yardage type thing. So, who's going to be there? Who's going to make it? I think that's going to be the question. If you look at this week, those listings, these rankings, got some holes in it. I don't think all these aren't going to make it, and I'd be skeptical on a lot of that stuff. So, anyways, it's a little hard doing it without my partner in crime, Richard. So, I hope I didn't see any questions come through the chat during this live video. I don't even know that I could do this on my own. Let's see. Oh, we got. Hey, Jeff Johnson. I'm screwed at QB since I have Lamar and Watson. Do I drop any of these guys on my bench? Juju, Palmer, Pickens, Murray, Patterson to pick up Cousins or Goff? Well, this week's going to be tough. Let's look at. Let's try to see what you're proposing here. Juju. Let's see. Lamar. Let's look at Watson and the Lamar's. See how they did on. So you got Lamar Jackson. I don't know if you can count on him. You're going to need a quarterback, and then you're counting on Watson to kind of heat up. The question is Jeff, is who are you going to pick up? Who's available? So you were thinking about Cousins or Goff. Personally, I like Goff. I like Cousins there. So if you can drop one of them. Juju's not really doing too much. Juju, it's really between Juju and Pickens in your scenario there, in my opinion. Now, would I drop Juju? If you can get some value for Judy, I would drop Judy in a heartbeat for Cousins. Judy hasn't done much all season, and that kind of worries me. You look at Cortland Sutton's not on this list. Judy hasn't been on this list. And if you look at quarterbacks, Russell Wilson hasn't been on that list. So if you can pick up Cousins, I'd do it. I'd drop Judy. I'd drop Pickens as well, just to pick up Cousins. So that's my opinion with that. I hope that makes sense. And that's about it. Let me know if that makes sense to you. And again, the way I do these videos, we're trying to use our stat machine to kind of show you some stuff. So if you see the video and you want to see any of these stats, you want to see what's going on, just ask me to show you some stats, and I can make it happen. We're gonna kind of get out of here, and hopefully we'll do a video on running backs next. And hey, if you want to subscribe to our channel, we always do fantasy football videos. We give rankings, and that's it. So thanks for watching. See you next time.
The Fantasy Goodfellas.
The ruling on the field.